What's up, everyone? This is the Next Tape Podcast, episode 197 with Mikel and
Tanyka.
where we have conversations on different topics. So today's episode, we're going to be doing a special type of episode. Tanyka will provide us with the topic today.
So we're going to be talking about past life recollections, more in particular, though, children and past life recollections. Um, so what I thought this topic was fascinating. What inspired me to do this was one story in particular that caught my interest, and I'm like, this sounds interesting. So that's kind of what made me want to do this episode. Um, but anyway,
Okay.
let's jump in.
All right. Let's,
Okay.
let's go. Go
Okay.
ahead.
So first of all, I know this is maybe a little bit against the grain in terms of the religion that we were baptized into or believe
Mhm,
in.
mhm.
Um, do you believe that we can have past lives, be reincarnated in a sense?
Yeah, I believe we can reincarnate it into anything.
Into anything, yeah.
Yeah, like we can reincarnate into dogs, probably
Mhm,
insects,
mhm,
even like birds up in the sky. So like basically,
yeah.
I probably was reincarnated into something else before this. It was
Oh, yeah.
so
I so, like, the reason why I said what I said previously is for anyone who doesn't know, um, with Catholicism, we tend to not believe in reincarnation.
Mm,
We believe in eternal life
uh-huh,
once you die. So you have eternal life in heaven. We don't believe in reincarnation.
mhm,
But for me, kind of similar to what you said, I do believe that we do have a reincarnation, that we do reincarnate into other, I'm a little iffy on if we get reincarnated into other creatures, into other species, but I definitely believe that the possibility of being reincarnated into um, another human life is
mhm.
definitely possible.
Yes.
Um, and yeah, so I
You
think
don't you don't think we were never insects? Like a
I
small
hope to
ant.
hell I wasn't.
A small ant that is got
I
squashed
hope
the next
not.
day, and then they reincarnated into a dog, and then
Listen, I I know what I've done to ants. I hope I was never an ant. Otherwise, I mean,
possibly
ants
you
are
might
strong though. They are
yeah
strong. Definitely the
yeah
strongest insect in my opinion.
yeah
Um, but no, I don't know. I'm not saying that it's not possible.
hmm
Maybe it's more of my brain limiting me from thinking that those things are possible because I think it's more of, well, humans are on top of the food chain. So
hmm
I think that's kind of where my hesitation comes in because I'm like,
well
well, if I became a chicken, then Jesus,
yeah well
I'm
image
screwed.
image if you were a spider and people were scared of spiders, yeah, and
Yeah. But if I'm gonna be reincarnated into a spider, I at least want to be like one of those spiders that can like kill people, like a black widow or something.
black widow the
Yeah,
so
something
yeah.
something cool. I don't want to be like just an everyday
usually
house
usually
spider.
usually those are in like uh somewhere, isn't that somewhere in the desert
Black
or
widows? There are black widows.
yeah,
There's
and
black. There's not just in the desert. Obviously, yes, there are
mm,
and species of spiders that are
mm,
indigenous to certain areas.
yeah, yeah.
But black widow,
Mhm.
there's black widows in Ontario. I think it depends on where in Ontario you are, but there's definitely black widows.
Mm.
in Ontario, and
Mhm.
I'm sure other parts of Canada as well. I've never, knock on wood, never seen one, but I've heard stories of people who have definitely seen black widows. I don't wanna mess with
Mm.
that.
Okay.
I don't want that in my house.
S What
Like,
where would it be around, like, lakes? I don't
I don't
like,
know. I don't know if
on
there's
grass,
survival in lakes and stuff. I'm not sure. I
beaches.
don't I don't know.
Ugh.
I wanna be like I wanna be like that tarantula in, like, Jungle to Jungle. I don't know if you know that movie
Yeah,
with,
you don't wanna be one of those, like, in
I
the
don't wanna be a regular old I do not wanna be a regular old house spider that's just gonna get, like, killed anyways in that situation. I don't want that.
I am sure if you were a scientific research as well.
Mm. Or I
That's
wanna
why
be that radioactive spider that bit Peter Parker. That would
yeah,
be fun.
well, not well, yeah, well, also what I mean by scientific research, they just, like, look into you and just basically
No,
see if
I
you're
don't
there.
wanna be researched
See
on. That's
Yeah,
a
see if you're
horrible
poison
way to live.
or, like, look into the data into, into spiders, but, yeah, no, like, yeah, those are the type of scientific you don't wanna be a scientific, uh,
I don't wanna be studied for
yeah,
science,
yeah,
whether I'm a
that's
spider or a rat or a
yeah,
mouse. No,
yeah,
thank you.
yeah, no, obviously, yeah, a lot of mouse it's compared to, like, humans in terms of, like
Yeah, but that's why
yeah,
they use mice, right?
yeah,
To do the research on mice,
yeah, yeah,
which
because
is
we have
a
similar
whole
DNA
other
yeah,
situation.
similar DNA, I guess. That's
I don't know if we do. Our DNA is a little more similar to pigs, actually. So I'm not sure why they choose mice.
hmm,
Maybe because no one wants them to be testing on pigs, because I guess that seems a little more inhumane than
mhm,
testing on a mouse. So I don't know.
uh, let me try to research, go ahead and talk about that.
Um,
Go ahead.
okay, but back to
Yeah,
children. So
yeah,
some young children spontaneously report memories of past life, often between the ages of 2 and 5, which typically fade by age 8. These children often provide particular details that researchers have successfully verified, and some cases also feature physical traits like birthmarks that correspond to injuries in the previous life. Organizations like the University of Virginia's Division of Personality Studies have been researching these cases for decades, which many studies focused on finding empirical evidence for reincarnation. So, in terms of like common characteristics,
mhm,
so mythology, researchers like Ian Stevenson have investigated these claims by documenting the children's statements and then trying to verify them with records of a deceased person. Some of the findings studies have documented thousands of cases worldwide across different cultures. Research has found that children who report these memories often grow up to lead normal lives.
mhm,
In terms of ongoing investigation, the study of these cases is ongoing with a focus on a scientific approach to understanding the phenomenon. So, I'm going to talk about some of the not so famous cases of this. I am going to talk about a couple of famous cases, but I'm going to talk a little bit about not so famous ones and
right,
kind of what their recollection is. So Bobby Hodges
yes,
or Sam.
yeah,
Bobby Hodges' case is unusual in that Bobby had no past life memories other
mhm,
than being a miscarried fetus.
oh, okay,
But his memories of that, as well as of events from the intermission period, the new intrauterine period, and birth, were vertical. Their accuracy was basically confirmed. The case was independently investigated by Jim B. Tucker and Carol Bowman, who called Bobby by different names in writing about him. The reports are merged in the following summary, which uses the name Tucker adopted. So,
Right.
Bobby's first word was cousin, and he talked frequently about wanting to live with his cousins. The significance of this began to emerge when he was 4 years old. One night after his bath, he asked his mother if she remembered when he and his younger brother Donald had been in her tummy together. She replied that they had not been in her tummy together, but he insisted that they had, although they had not been they had not been born. So
Mm.
he's having this memory that he was in this tummy with his other brother. That did not happen. They were not yet born. So gradually it became clear that he was referring to a miscarriage that his aunt had suffered when she was carrying twins 7 years before his birth. Bobby said that he had tried to return to his aunt but found her womb already occupied. Indeed, she had become pregnant shortly after the miscarriage with one of Bobby's cousins. Bobby accused Donald of causing the miscarriage and demanded to know why, at which Donald took his dummy out of his mouth and yelled, I want a daddy. Bobby also correctly described his parents' wedding, which had occurred while his mother was pregnant with him.
Mm.
He wanted to know why he had been born by cesarean section, so C-section. His mother explained that it was because he had been in a face-up occiput posterior position. So I'm going to assume that meant maybe his head was facing down, but he was facing up because I think optimal position is head down and facing like the head, your face is facing down if you're following what I'm
Mm.
saying.
Mm.
Um, so had he turned over, he could have been born normally. He's like, oh, I didn't know that. I would have turned over, but I thought they were trying to push me back in. So that's kind of that recollection. Craig Mitchell is another one we're going to talk about. He's from Canada, so this will be interesting. This case was investigated by James Matlock and reported at a conference and later in a book. It concerns a high functioning autistic boy, Craig is not his real name, who gave evidence of having been in his mother's father, or sorry, had having been his mother's father, who had abused her in in a sexual sense when she was a teenager. He had died a mere 10 days before the boy was conceived. So there's that connection. He dies, then this child is conceived. At the time of his death, Craig's mother was estranged from her father. She did not learn about his passing until after Craig was conceived. She and her same sex partner wished to have children, so they arranged for a man of their acquaintance to impregnate them. Both Craig and his brother were diagnosed as on the autism spectrum. Not sure the reason to know that, but it suggests that their affliction may be hereditary. Certainly, it is not,
Mm.
specific to Craig. So, trying to where I am here. So, when he was 3 years old and 8 months old, he was present when his mother was undergoing an emotional release therapy session in an effort to deal with her feelings towards her father, which still troubled her, obviously.
Mm.
Witnessing this, Craig started putting his hands on her, more demonstrative than usual. He told her over and over, It's okay. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Then
Mm.
he added, I never said, I never said so. Meaning I never said I was sorry, or the father saying he was never sorry. This is the only thing Craig said that related to his grandfather, but his mother noticed several behavioral traits that matched the man, which I don't think is crazy, especially if she carried him. You can kind of have traits that can be similar to a grandparent. I don't think that's at all crazy, and that doesn't necessarily mean he's reincarnated, your father reincarnated into your child.
Mhm.
Um, so I'm just playing devil's advocate a little bit
Yeah.
with that.
I was wondering about every single child that, like, gets born and every single thing,
Mhm.
you know, and you become somebody else, you know? That's all. Like when I go into like a hospital or whatever, I'm always thinking that it's just like you become somebody else in someone else's body as a kid. So it makes me
Do you mean, like, if you did, like, a
like when
body
people
swap type situation?
yeah, it's like
Like a
when they
Freaky Friday with
like so,
babies?
yeah, like when
Okay.
someone like died, like a old like
Oh, I see.
no yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Well, that's what they mean, like, where there is a death, there's a birth, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So it does make you wonder if, like, we're just the human population is just being
Yeah.
recycled in a sense,
Yeah.
right? Which is a crazy thought that that could happen. Um, but who knows?
Yeah.
Who
Image.
knows?
Yeah, image oh, don't want to say like a
But
dangerous criminal who died and then goes back into like a you know another another bodies.
I feel
So
like that was a movie once. I feel like
a
they actually
dangerous
made a
criminal
movie.
and
I
then
feel
there's
like they made a
criminal
movie like that, yeah.
yeah,
Maybe
and
not,
then
maybe I'm wrong.
and then what
But,
yeah.
like, let's yeah, like, I mean, let's, like, pretend, like, we'll use, like, a real life murderer here, like,
Mhm.
let's say Jeffrey Dahmer, okay? Let's just say, yeah, he was potentially reincarnated, um, into another human.
Mhm.
Um, what I kind of understand about children who remember a past life
Mhm.
is if he was reincarnated into a new life, that he may have memories, which is up, but he
Yeah.
may have memories
Yeah.
of who he was before, up until a certain age. But then, you know, hopefully those memories or those things will pass. But I think what also you're saying, which
Mhm.
lends to that fear of holy can that happen,
Mhm.
is what if those thoughts and those feelings, because if you really are remembering that life,
Mhm.
and I'm just going to assume usually if you want to kill somebody like Dahmer did or Bundy did or
Mhm.
whoever else,
Mhm.
you like that. You wanted to do that.
Mhm.
So it's like, do those feelings go away? Or
Yeah.
do those thoughts really permeate your mind
Yeah.
and then another monster is created? Honestly, I don't know. I would hope though, like I want to say this. I want to hope for those people who are reincarnated. But then again, we're just talking about this child who may have been his grandfather may have reincarnated into him, who seemed to have been a horrible person in life. But I really hope that if people are being reincarnated, it's those people who have done good in life to a certain extent.
Mhm.
We all make mistakes, we all whatever. But is pretty much led a decent, good life and get rewarded with being reincarnated. People like Dahmer or Richard Ramirez or Ted Bundy or whoever else, all of those really up people are not going to have the privilege of being reincarnated because they're getting their punishment, which is in hell. I hope. If you believe in heaven, hell, and all of that, um, that's what I hope. 'Cause I hope people like that are not going to be brought back into this world because they don't deserve that. They didn't live a good life when they had it.
Mhm.
So that's what I hope. But
Mhm.
who knows?
I hope. Yeah. Yeah, I just wonder about that would be crazy. That's absolutely crazy. Yeah, I'm like, yeah, if they remember and they continue to do it when they get older.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, and again, these are people who are remembering their past life.
Uh,
If we are to believe that reincarnation is a normal cycle of life, that um that maybe 9 times out of 10, like, let's just say, like, my past life. I don't remember my past life.
mhm.
Um, at all. So I go through life not remembering that past life, and I don't know the person I would have been in that life. I could have been a horrible person, who knows? Um, but I don't remember that. So, like, I hope, like, if any of those people are being reincarnated, that they have 0 memory of who they were and are gonna have even a flashback, because you can have flashbacks. I definitely feel like I've had flashbacks to something that feels so real that maybe it could have been a past life, but, you know, I
Mhm.
hope they don't even get that because we don't want that. We
Yeah.
don't need that. So, anyway,
Yeah.
let's move on to the next person, Joseph. This is quick. So Joseph habitually addressed his grandmother as mom and called his mother by her first name. When he was a toddler, he related several memories of an uncle who had died in a tractor mishap 20 years earlier. He recalled what places had looked like in his uncle's day, remarking, amongst other things, on a time he had spilled red paint on himself while painting a roof that had since been repainted green. When a new pair of shoes were purchased for him, he insisted they be in his uncle's size, even though they were much too large for his small feet. Ian Stevenson investigated this case, and on one of his trips to visit Joseph and his family, uh, and his family took along Washington Post journalist Tom Schroeder, who wrote about it in his book Old Souls. That's kind of the gist of it. But if no one was catching on to this, the belief is Joseph is um, the uncle who had passed away 20 years earlier, and he's referring to his grandmother as his mother because that would have been his mother, and referring to his mother by her first name because that would have been his sister. Um, I think that's fascinating
Mhm.
personally. If that is the truth and that's what happened, I think that's like really
Mhm.
fascinating.
All right.
Um, so yeah. Another quick one. Carrie Mott. So Carrie Mott was a surprise baby.
Mhm.
Her mother had been told that her fallopian tubes were blocked and that she could not get pregnant again after a miscarriage. Nevertheless, she did and gave birth to Carrie quickly after the death of her mother, Artise. The family noticed that Carrie behaved like Artise and jokingly said she was Artise come back to them. As
Mhm.
Carrie matured, the identification became undeniable. Once Carrie sang all stanzas of Chattanooga Choo Choo, which was a song which had been a favorite of Artis, but which she, Carrie, had never heard, much less the opportunity to learn. When she began dance classes at age 4, she astonished her instructor by instinctively knowing dance moves. She picked out items that had belonged to Artis and informed her mother about the origins of them. She did not know, and she would not have known. So I think that's again another fascinating one, kind of again
Interesting.
talking about, you know. Um, so those are kind of like the more regular type stories
Mhm.
because now we're going to get into into stories that are more well known and people can definitely question and be like, maybe you read something and that's how you know all of this information.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
we're gonna kinda get into one of those stories now.
Mm.
Barbro Carlin was born in Sweden in 1954. Her first book was published at the tender age of 12. It was a book of poetry. The book has gone on to be one of the most popular books in Sweden. Since then, she has written and published 9 further volumes of poetry and prose, I think is how you say it. She's also worked as a mounted policewoman and trained and competed in dressage for many years. But it's her early life that is most startling. Ever since she was a small child, she dreamed of another life. The fear would come that would come over, sorry, the fear would overcome her and she would wake up shaking and frightened. She had the horrible dreams for as long as she could remember. The most startling thing began when she was about 2 years old. She told her mother and father that her name was not Barbara. It was, in fact, Anne. Her mother dismissed it. It's just
Yeah.
another fantasy.
Mhm.
Barbara carried on having the dreams and couldn't understand why she felt she was living in two worlds. By this time, she knew that her name was Anne Frank and couldn't understand why they kept calling her Barbara. She realized that they were not her real parents, even though they insisted that they were. So, this is the story for me that I heard for the first time, and I'm like, oh my goodness, this is insane. Like, there's no way. If, I'm assuming you know who Anne Frank is, correct? No?
No, I don't.
No. Okay.
I,
That's okay.
yeah.
You probably don't remember. I'm sure you would have learned it in high school because we all learned about the Holocaust in high school. Anne Frank was, I believe she was 14 years old. She and her family were being hidden away in an attic um, by, I don't know if they were like family friends or family, I'm going to assume family friends that were hiding them in the attic away from the Nazis because they were Jewish. And eventually, unfortunately, they were discovered and sent to concentration camps. I'm not sure which ones. Want to say Auschwitz, but I'm not sure if it was Auschwitz that they were sent to. Um, and I believe the father was kept alive. Whether he survived, the harsh situation of a concentration camp, I do not know. But Anne Frank and her mother, and I don't know how many siblings she had, um, but they were all sent straight to the gas chamber. So Anne Frank is one of so Anne for the reason we know who Anne Frank is, and she is as famous as she
Mhm.
is because she wrote a book of poetry or wrote her in her diary about her experiences. I'm not gonna say poetry. She wrote her experiences in a diary during that time that they were being hidden. And I believe her father did survive. Her father did survive. Father found the diary and got them published, and
Mm.
that's how we know about Anne Frank. Um, so the fact that this particular woman, Barbara, that she herself would later write books and would write poetry similar to Anne Frank. So that's the history of Anne Frank for anyone who doesn't know who she is,
Mhm.
so that you have that context as we kind of move through the rest of the story.
All right. Uh,
Um,
hmm. Interesting.
so very interesting.
Yeah.
Um, so Barbara had no one else to talk to and continued to insist that she wasn't who they said she was. At this time, the Diary of Anne Frank had only been translated into a few languages, but definitely not Swedish. There is no actual date of publication in Sweden, but it's believed to be in the late 1950s. So, over the years, the two lives merged together, and Barbara insisted that her real father was going to come and collect her. By the time she was 6 years old, her parents were so concerned that their daughter was quote unquote crazy that they decided to take her to see a psychiatrist. By this time, Barbara began to realize that nobody would ever believe her. When she visited the psychiatrist, she didn't tell him her stories. She was afraid that she would be taken away, and so she kept quiet, which breaks my heart
Uh,
that, you know, whether or not you believe that this person was Anne Frank reincarnated,
uh-huh.
um, the fact that she had this fear of, if I tell them what I'm experiencing, they're just gonna take me away,
Right.
like they took her away to a concentration camp, breaks my heart.
Mm.
Um, so the psychiatrist informed her parents that she was a normal little girl and not to worry about her. She was happy and just living in a child's dream world. As other children do, she must have been talking to an imaginary friend. She would soon grow out of it. Spoiler alert, she never did. She became introverted and decided to keep quiet about it, but the memories did not go away. At the age of 7, she started school. She was so pleased to realize that now she could read and write. So she secretly started to write down her memories, but after writing them, she threw the paper away in case others found it.
Mm.
Barbara continued to write. By the time she was about 11 years old, she had written poetry, but she also uh, started to question about reincarnation, where we come from and where we go. One day, a friend of the family saw some of her work that she had kept and asked her parents if he could show it to someone with the idea of getting it published. This was her first book called Man on Earth. She was 12 years old. Barbara hadn't written anything about her being the reincarnation of Aunt Frank at this time, purely because she had started to feel silly and slightly
Mm.
ashamed to think that she had told everyone that she was somebody else. The reason was that after she had started school, Barbara realized that Anne Frank was a real person. So she didn't even, I guess, which makes me think like she's not lying because she didn't even know who Anne Frank was, at that time, didn't put in the connection. She's just like if she's truly thinking I'm Anne Frank reincarnated or
Mm.
I am Anne Frank,
Mm.
um, that she's probably just like thinking I'm just me. This is
Right.
me. As
Right.
as all of us go through life, I'm just me. I'm
Mhm.
whatever.
Mhm. Mhm.
And then to kind of realize, "Oh, wait a minute. I'm somebody and this somebody's actually real."
Right.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it
Um,
is, yeah.
yeah. The book had been published in 1947, but was only
Mhm.
then beginning to become popular. Barbara realized that it was no longer smart to go around saying that she had been Anne Frank. At the
Mm.
age of 10, Barbara was taken on a trip to Europe by her parents. So they came to Amsterdam, and her parents decided to take in all of the sights. And of course, one of those being the house of Anne Frank, where she was hidden during that time.
Mm.
After calling for a cab, Barbara suddenly turned around to them and said, "We don't need a cab. I know exactly where we are and how we get to the house."
Mm.
Again, she's never been here before.
Yeah.
Her parents were startled and replied, "How do you know this? We have never been here before."
Mm.
But Barbara just turned to them and quietly replied, "Let me show you the way." First of all, can I just say, as the adults in the room, if my child is like, "Oh, I know where I am. I'll show you where to go. Follow me." Throw the child out. Throw the whole child away. Okay? If my child is saying this to me, I'm like, "So I'm just gonna I'm we're gonna start over." Okay? Because this is freaky. Children children get scary like this. I'm terrified myself, but yeah. Okay, let me continue. So her parents didn't know what to think, but they said, "Okay," and they started to walk to the house. Crossing roads, turning corners until Barbara said, "It's just around the next corner." And she was right. As they entered the house, Barbara was heard to say, "They have changed the steps outside." Her parents didn't know what to say, but as they entered the house, Barbara began to get a really horrible feeling. This was her dream. The atmosphere was clingy. She felt a tightness in her chest, total and undeniable fear. I'm going to call that PTSD. The dreams were suddenly real and right in front of her. They entered the room where Anne Frank had lived. Barbara was terrified. Her hands were cold and clammy, and her mother believed that she was ill. She wanted to take her outside, but Barbara said no. She wanted to see it to make sure everything was the same that she remembered, but the feelings were getting worse.
Uh,
She noticed that Anne Frank's pictures were still on the wall, and she excitedly told her parents, "Look, the pictures are still there." But there were no pictures actually there. So she's
uh,
having like a flashback to, I guess, pictures that Anne Frank herself had maybe on the wall when they were there. Um, so what are you talking about? Her mother asked. "The pictures were there. I know they were," Barbara replied. So her mother walked over to one of the men who worked there and asked if there had been pictures on the wall. My man replied yes. They had taken them down because people were taking them.
Uh-huh.
Which is, what's wrong with you people? Don't take them.
Right.
Then her mother realized that it was real. Everything Barbara had said was true. She hugged her and told her that now she understood. You're not alone anymore. Barbara decided to wait outside. On the way to the front door, she suddenly saw a man in a green uniform standing over her, and I can only imagine
Wow.
her fear in that
Yeah.
moment.
Yeah.
Barbara
Right.
decided to, sorry, I said that right. Sorry. She cried and ran only to fall over the step. When she
Mm-hmm.
turned around, he was gone. In fact, he had never been there in the first place. It was a flashback. Ugh.
Mm.
Barbara's mother went on to become a spiritual churchgoer. Her father dismissed it all purely because he didn't want anything to shake his safe world. We
Huh.
all know the story. Well, most of us all know the story of Anne Frank. So I'll just kind of go into a little bit here because they have it here. So a young German Jewish girl thrown into the horrors of war at a young age, forced to stay hidden away in an attic at her father's workplace in Amsterdam, along with her family on the 6th of July, 1942. Anneliese Marie Frank, or Anne Frank, started her captivity. The small area was cramped and claustrophobic. Living in such abysmal conditions, Anne found her freedom by writing in a diary her father had bought on her 13th birthday. Throughout their hidden years, she captured each emotion, girlish thought, and fear, writing it down purely to keep herself busy. Little did she know that years after her death in a concentration camp, her diary would become the second biggest bestseller book after the Bible. She
Huh.
died after being betrayed by one of their helpers, and on the morning of August 4th, was arrested and transferred with her sister Margot to the hellhole that was Bergen-Belsen, so not
Uh,
Auschwitz. Otto Frank, their father, was the only member of the family to survive. A few years later, after the war, he returned to Amsterdam and met Miep Gies, one of the
uh-huh.
kind people who helped hide the family and who had found the diary in the attic.
Huh.
After many months of contemplation, he decided to publish it so that people would read the true story of their suffering at the hands of the Nazis. Little did he
Right.
know just how popular the book would be. Anne Frank ironically died just a few weeks before the liberation of Bergen-Belsen around the 5th. I won again.
Yeah.
Okay. So Anne Frank ironically died just a few weeks before the liberation of Bergen-Belsen, which was around April 15th, 1945, possibly from typhus, but the real cause was never known. She had been at the camp less than a year. So apparently she didn't. I always thought she died in a gas chamber,
Mhm.
but maybe not. Um, Typhoid fever. Anything's possible. So,
Right.
anyways, um, the first application of Anne Frank's diary was on June 25th, 1947.
Uh-huh.
The title of the book is actually called Anne Frank, The Diary of a Young Girl. The most compelling proof has to be the fact that Barbara has actually met and talked to Anne Frank's cousin, Buddy Ilias. Buddy is an actor. He has starred in The Love Boat, Crime
Mm.
Scene, and The Magic Mountain. Yeah, I mean, a Love Boat, my goodness. He's also the last living relative of Anne Frank. He had heard about Barbara through her publisher, even though at that time she hadn't written her story. But he was intrigued and asked to meet her, even though he didn't believe in reincarnation. But he was curious to see who this woman was going around telling everybody that she was in
Mm.
fact Anne Frank.
Mm.
He invited her to dinner. As
Mhm.
Barbara knocked on the door, Buddy came out and they looked at each other. Then they fell into each other's arms.
Mm.
Kind of just like, I guess he just kind of knew. Um, so that's that story. Um, yeah. So
Mm.
I've got one more. This one kind of fell into my lap as I was actually researching the story of Barbara. Um, I thought this one was interesting as well. See what we all think about this one.
Right.
So, on the banks of the Nile, near an ancient temple built to the god Osiris by
Mm.
Pharaoh Seti the First, and I think of the mummy. I gotta watch that movie. Lived an
Mhm.
elderly English woman. But
Yeah.
this wasn't an ordinary lady, y'all. Dorothy Eady. died, quote unquote, at the age of 3, and when she woke up, her life had changed forever. She was convinced that she had once been born across the sea in ancient Egypt. She claimed that she had been an Egyptian princess. She insisted that she had been a woman named, I'm going to butcher this, Bentrishite? Ben, Ben, we're going to call her Bentry because I'm going to butcher her name. She went on to claim that she had served at the court of King Seti. Her strange journey into the distant past, which she described in 1973, began as a child after she fell down a stairway and was declared dead by the family doctor. Dorothy was born in 1904 into a wealthy family from South London, England. Her life was very much like anyone else's until that fateful day when she fell down the stairs. Strangely, her parents and even the family doctor declared her dead. It was only when the doctor returned with a nurse to check her over that he found the little girl was very much alive and well. Soon after, Dorothy took to hiding under tables and behind furniture. Her strange behavior didn't stop there. Instead of turning back into the little girl that she was before the accident, her actions became even more bizarre. She bewildered her parents with demands to be taken home. On another occasion, when her parents took her to visit the British Museum in London, Dorothy's behavior became even more bizarre when they entered the Egyptian galleries. Among the mummies of ancient Egypt were statues of all the Egyptian gods and goddesses. For no apparent reason, Dorothy rushed up to them and began kissing the feet of the statues.
Huh.
Then, to her parents' horror, she began screaming in a voice that sounded strange and old. The words that came out of her mouth stunned them. Dorothy stated that she wanted to be left with my people. On a separate occasion, Dorothy was shown a photo of the temple built by Seti I. She immediately told her father that the temple was her real home, a conviction she never lost as she got older. She then went on to claim that she had known Seti and that he was a kindly man. As her convictions grew, Dorothy began to learn how to read hieroglyphics at the British Museum. She astounded her teacher with her ability to learn the symbols easily. Dorothy explained to her that actually she wasn't learning a new language, just revisiting the old language that she had forgotten. Her behavior didn't just affect her parents, there were many times when her insistence that she was the reincarnation of Seti caused her and her parents embarrassment. Her Sunday school teacher, at her wits' end, asked Dorothy's parents to keep her away from the class purely because she was upsetting the other children. On one occasion, Dorothy compared Christianity with heathen ancient Egyptian. Heathen, in this sense, meant pagan or of the earth. She then refused to sing any hymns that feared derogatory names aimed at Egyptians, such as Curse the Swart Egyptians, which I don't blame her. Her regular visits to Mass by the Catholic Church were terminated because she kept referring to it as liking to the old religion. After a bombing raid during World War I, Dorothy went to live with her grandmother in Sussex. Here she continued her study of ancient Egypt. As she grew older, she became fascinated with archaeological sites and began to collect Egyptian antiques. By the time Dorothy was living in Portsmouth after working at Plymouth Art School, Plymouth, not Plymouth, God, art school, she took part in various Egyptian roles such as drama and singing. At one
Huh.
time, she actually took on the role of Isis and sang the lamentation to Osiris at his death. At the age of 27, Dorothy started work in London at an Egyptian magazine. Here she wrote articles supporting Egyptian politics and independence. It was during the time that she met her husband, Iman Abel Migud, I believe.
Uh-huh.
He
Uh-huh.
was an Egyptian student. In 1931, Dorothy moved to Egypt, and on arriving, she knelt down and kissed the ground. Then she announced that she had come home to stay. She went on to have a son with Iman, and she named him, not surprisingly, Seti. Hence the name that she was given, Seti, at Mother of Seti, or Mother of Seti.
Huh.
Dorothy reported visitations of a spirit named Horra. He
Huh.
told her the story of her first life or previous incarnation. Evidently, she had been called Bentry. I'm not going to say the whole name again. Bentry was of humble origin. Her mother was a vegetable seller and her father a soldier. This was the time of Seti, which was between 1290 BC and 1279 BC. When she was 3 years old, her mother died and she was placed in the temple of Sultan. There she became a priestess. At 12 years
Um,
old, she took the vows to become a consecrated virgin. Don't know what that means.
huh.
Over the, I guess it means really, really virgin. I don't know.
Yeah.
Over the next couple of
Mm.
years, Bentry acted in various plays about the gods. One day, Seti visited her and they became lovers, so I guess not that much of a virgin.
Mhm, mhm.
I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. Yeah,
I'm
you
not
gotta
gonna
be
lie, this story reminds me so much of the mummy. It really does. It's kind of crazy.
that's a sign.
When she became pregnant, she told the high priest, and to her horror, she was told that it was a sentence of death to break her vows because she was supposed to be a really, really big virgin. Clearly, that's not the case anymore.
Mm.
Venturi committed suicide. Oh my God, just like the mummy.
Huh.
Holy. She committed
Wow.
suicide instead of waiting for the sentence to be carried out because hell no. Over the years, Dorothy worked as an archaeological research assistant. Then, after the breakup of her marriage, Dorothy moved to Abydos. By this time, it was 1956, and she was 52 years old. This was the time that Dorothy began to be known locally as Olmseti, as the village people always named a woman after the firstborn.
Mm.
And this is where her knowledge was tested. Would her previous life be proved? Was Dorothy really the reincarnation of the priestess of the Nile? Abydos was a special place for Dorothy. This is where she believed that as a young girl, thousands of years ago, she had lived, worked, and loved, then met her tragic death. The location was powerful not only to Dorothy, who remembered her past, but to others eager to test the theories of her past life. On one of her trips to the Temple of Seti, where she believed she had worshipped thousands of years ago, the chief inspector from the antiques department, who knew of her claims, decided to test her theories about reincarnation. Was she real? Had her soul traveled through time to become the Om Seti who they knew today? Asking her to stand near a particular wall painting in near darkness, the inspector told her to identify them according to her previous lifetime's memory. The answer
Mm.
to the question of whether she had retained her memories was simple. It was yes. The paintings and markings had never been published in an Egyptian book, magazine, or anywhere else in the world. Not only did she know the answers, but she told them things that they hadn't even discovered for themselves. Either Dorothy was a great liar or a good con artist, or she was telling the truth. Along with her knowledge of ancient paintings and wall art, she went on to translate difficult pieces and works of art that even the most hardened scientific minds found difficult. Her
Huh.
astonishing memory, skill, and knowledge of the language of Egypt were a great help to the archaeologists who were working at the site. Then came the moment when there could be no more doubt in her abilities and her previous life. Each morning and night, Dorothy would go to the temple to pray. On the birthdays of Isis and Osiris, she would observe the ancient food ceremonies and bring offerings of beer, wine, and where am I? Beer, wine, and bread.
Mm.
Over the years, Seti or Dorothy continued to live and work in the area. The locals came to trust her and asked her for medical knowledge and listened to stories told about the time of Seti. Whether the West believed her or not, the local people did, and surely it must be their thoughts that we should take into consideration. They would know more about their own country than outsiders. Dorothy died on April 21st, 1981. Her body was interred in an unmarked grave facing west outside of Coptic Cemetery in Abydos. Unlike the
Huh.
burial she had asked for, a tomb in the manner of the ancients. And that is Dorothy Eady.
Huh.
I don't know
Wow.
where anyone lands on that one,
Yeah.
but it's definitely interesting for sure.
Mm.
that she seemed to have like this knowledge that no one knew, and the only way you would know is if you were there.
Uh-huh.
Um, yeah, it is interesting to kind of hear about her, and also like I'm not gonna lie, it's actually really crazy how similar, like I said, the story is to
Mm.
the Mummy, and
Yeah.
in particular, I'm talking the first, well, kind of really and truly the first one, and it makes me wonder if they actually took some of her story and kind of put it into the movie. Took little bits of her and put it in different characters. Because again, the pharaoh at the time was Seti. Um, there was the fact that she wasn't supposed to be getting involved with anybody, um, at all, not even the pharaoh, and she in the movie, she does, or um, Moon is the character who does with Emotep. And then her also being an archaeologist assistant kind of makes me think of Evelyn and her knowledge um, of Egyptian artifacts and Egyptian history and that kind of thing kind of lends to that a little bit. And not only that, but in the second movie, Evelyn actually was having past life memories as well to the time of Seti, and she was supposed to be, like, the daughter of him or whatever it was. So, it's just kind of interesting, like, makes me wonder, did they take, like, her story and, like, make it into this movie? Interesting. But whether or not I believe she wasn't hurting anybody. So, if she was, she was. If she wasn't, well,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. Crazy story. That's wow.
Yeah.
Wow. What made you think it's closer to the mummy? Is it like because it's similar to
It's the
uh
fact that like I said, it's the fact that they use, like, different parts of her story,
okay.
and kind of I see a lot of the similarities to different things that happened in the movie, or some
Uh-huh.
of the similarities to the different characters. Like, I feel like like I said, the fact that her past life was a priestess. She wasn't supposed to get involved with anybody. She was supposed to
Mhm.
be this super virgin. Like, she wasn't supposed to get involved with anybody. It's kind of similar to Moon, who is the the Mummy's or Emotep's
Mhm.
love
Mhm.
interest, who was supposed to be just for Seti, because Seti is in the movie as well. Just supposed to be for him. No one's supposed to touch her, and she's having this affair with Imhotep. She commits suicide, just like apparently her past life did as well. Um, and then her also being an archaeologist assistant and having all of this knowledge about Egyptian history and being able to read hieroglyphics and stuff like that is very similar to Evelyn, who is one of the main characters in the movie, having this knowledge and is able to use that knowledge to get them through the movie and stuff, right? So it's kind of this have these little different tiny things, like, if you don't have the knowledge of the movie, you'll
Mhm.
miss it, but because I have the knowledge of the movie because 'cause I've watched it so much, then I'm like, "Oh, this reminds me of that," or "This reminds me of this character," or "This reminds me of
Mhm.
this person's personality in the movie," and then add to the fact of just the story of she wasn't supposed to be touched by anybody.
Mhm.
That was a huge plot point and was the reason for the movie in the first place, really. So it started the whole movie that Moon was not supposed to be
Right.
touched by anybody.
All right. Okay.
And so it's that part that I'm like, "Oh, these similarities are really cool." So,
Interesting.
I
Okay.
don't know if they did or didn't, but it's definitely interesting.
Hmm. All
Yeah,
right.
that's
That's it.
that's the episode on
Uh.
past life.
Okay. All right. So, just to go back on, well, the mice thing. I did a
Mhm.
little bit. The mouse thing that we
Yeah.
talked about like earlier with the reincarnation and every single thing.
Yeah.
Why science uh pick mice
Mhm.
and compare us to to mice.
Yeah.
Hold on, let me just go back and just see. Okay, so I think it's because of genetics is a big reason, right?
Okay.
Mice and humans share about like 85 to 90% of their genetics. So which means biological process like how cells grow and divide and respond to danger are very similar. This is why research is in areas like genetics and bio medical research often relies on mice. So that's why. So
Okay.
if you guys don't know why scientists like to do studies on mice and then research and compare us like or do studies to compare us to like humans, that's why.
Okay.
So yeah,
Interesting.
it's, yeah, yeah.
Still sucks
Yeah,
for the mice.
yeah,
But
yeah,
anyway.
yeah, yeah, it does suck. Because if you were recording in the mines and then you get captured by not well, I don't know what type of organization will catch you and then do studies and then send you to a scientist, right? I don't know what type of organizations that do that. I don't know. Yeah,
No
I don't,
clue.
I don't,
I
I don't
don't know
know.
how that I
I
wonder
don't
if
know.
they
Just
um they're all created in the lab, like they're reproducing in a lab setting.
that's
That's
probably
what I'm thinking. That's probably what they're doing.
okay. That's probably
Yeah.
it. Probably it. Okay. All right. Yeah. Yep. Just wanted to say that. You know. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
But we will be back next week
Yep.
with
We'll talk
another
next week.
episode.
All right. Peace,
Okay.
guys.
Bye. If you liked what you heard with our podcast, you can head on over to our website, which is solo.to/next take podcast. There you can get any of the links to any of our social media, which is Facebook, Instagram at Next Take Podcast, and Twitter, TikTok, and Blue Sky at Next Take Pod. You can also find links to our Reddit page and many other things, I'm sure. Can't remember all off the top of my head. You can also email us at mikeltanyka@gmail.com. There you can send us any inquiries you have, any questions, or also any episode ideas. And if you do have episode ideas, just make sure you put in the subject line episode ideas, and we'll add it to our list. If you also liked us, you can like us, rate us, follow us on any of your favorite podcast apps. You can rate us, however, on Spotify and Apple Podcast. We would greatly appreciate that. And we'll also move forward and share or spot a light on those who give us 5-star ratings in the future. That is it for us. We'll see you next time for the episode.